went to a party behind his back, came home drunk, and found him waiting to end it all.
Have you ever been in a situation where you want to let loose, but you end up letting loose in the wrong places and with wrong people? I so regret the day I went to the men's party because I wanted to let loose because it destroyed the only good thing that I had with my fiancé. I would never forget his face when I came back, and the things he did made me regret ever going to that party. The alcohol that you were drinking suddenly gets out of the system right away. Have you ever had one of those nights where you just want to have some fun and let loose? Well, that's exactly what happened to me recently. I made the decision to go to a party that was specifically for men, thinking it would be a great way to have a good time and meet new people. Till this very moment, I am still in denial and can't seem to get over the fact that I had lost my fiancé because I had decided to be stupid and did something that had put my relationship in jeopardy. There is no one to blame but myself. I did all of that, and to tell the truth, I regret it, and I still want my fiancé back. I would even trade anything just to get him back to me. My fiancé, Thomas Morris, male 34, and I, female 32, met at a football match that I had gone to watch in Florida Tech Panther Stadium a few years ago. He was sitting next to me, and since I was alone, he was also alone. We ended up chatting, talking about football and general stuff. Since then, we got along. We had a lot of fun while watching the match. Another thing that made it so much fun was that we were supporting different teams, and mine won, by the way. He would complain about the cheating referee, saying he was favoring my team. Thomas was just a ball of fun and happiness. He was able to make me forget about my miserable life that I had at home for once. I'm not a person who is good at socializing, but with Thomas it was just easy. The conversations were flowing so smoothly, and I was having a lot of fun. We exchanged numbers during the game, and from there onwards we became inseparable friends. One thing about Thomas is that he is overprotective, and when he loves for real. He's a great guy. He's sweet, kind, and humble, but do him wrong. It would be like you had caused a commotion in hell. That guy can hold grudges, and when he avenges himself, it doesn't get really nice. You would even regret ever stepping on his foot. I had learned that when some guy, I think they knew each other from way back. That guy called him names and reminded him of the past that he had told me that he wanted to forget about. The things he did to the guy were scary. He was really heartless at that time, and for me to witness it made me kind of scared of Thomas. You know, when you witness some scary and heartless **** for the first time, you get traumatized for days or even weeks. That was me. After what Thomas did to that guy, I was traumatized and didn't want to see Thomas for a couple of days. My friendship with Thomas went on for like 7, if not 8 months, until he confessed his true feelings for me. I had seen his actions and the way he was acting when with me that he was no longer treating me as a friend. I was relieved when he eventually decided to break the confusion and confessed. At first, I was surprised I wouldn't lie. I mean, the guy is handsome and all. So I had thought that our relationship will only be a friendship. I didn't see myself as his type of girl that he would date or even propose to marry. So Thomas and I didn't date for too long. It took him like 5 or 6 months to propose. And the day he proposed, I couldn't believe it, you know. With my history of non-lasting relationships, I had really thought I had bad luck when it came to relationships because they never lasted even 6 months at least. And all the men that I had dated would break up with me for one reason. I do not meet their standards and satisfactions. I couldn't believe it. I had thought I was the one with the problem, but I wasn't. My relationship with Thomas was everything and more. It was truly a bliss, and I felt so secured and loved in him. He was my first true and genuine man that I had fallen in love with. Yes, I had my doubts about our relationship, and I had thought that maybe it wouldn't last just like my previous relationships, but it surprised me when we had lasted for years. From there, I knew that I wasn't the problem. The guys that I was dating before Thomas really ate up my self-esteem. I started looking down on myself, thinking that I would never be good enough for any man, only for God to turn the tables and give me Thomas, the best man that I had ever dated, and the man who truly loved me for me, and not for what I had to offer. Thomas loved me for who I really am. We had a deep connection and chemistry that no one would actually think of. Sometimes we would act like we were siblings, and sometimes like lovers or best friends. Thomas was my go-to guy whenever I had a problem. He knew how to make me feel better when I would sometimes feel under the weather. He knew me from inside and outside. He knew me when I was happy or sad. And I had ruined all that just because of lust and desires. How could I ruin such a good thing that was going on between Thomas and I? It was really selfish of me. But one thing I would never forget is the revenge or the actions that he took when I came back from the men's party. It was something that I had never expected, and it still haunts me till today. Thomas and I would go to parties and visit new clubs or pubs. It was really a great experience to get to explore places with your partner. The relationship that I had with Thomas really meant a lot to me, and I truly regret ever going to that party, because it made me lose the only thing that mattered to me, and the only person close to my heart. I just wanted to have some fun, but I guess the fun had me instead. How could I be so stupid and careless? A few years later, our relationship was under the rock. We would argue most of the time and sometimes end up going to bed angry at each other. Mind you, we had talked about going to bed angry at each other. We had agreed that no one would go to bed angry or sad because of another person. We agreed to communicate about things that we don't like and the things that make us angry to avoid going to bed with a heavy heart. A lot was happening in our relationship to a point that I would somehow feel like I was going back to my past life, whereby I was drinking a lot, partying a lot, and had flings here and there with men. I had no control over myself, and that had started when I lost my father in a shooting that had taken place between some gangsters in the police department. My father was a cop, so he actually passed on while on duty. I was shattered when I heard about his passing, and I somehow lost myself. Another thing, Thomas was not always available since he was an event coordinator. His job demanded his most attention and time, so that kind of affected me because his events would take most of his time to a point that he wouldn't have time for me. His attention was something that I would only look at our pictures and remind myself of our old happy and less busy days. Thomas would go maybe to another city or to another country to host an event, and he would go for days, if not weeks or months. His traveling made things really hard for us, especially for me, because even our intimate moments were no longer the same. I loved Thomas a lot, and heck, I still love the guy. The relationship really meant a lot to me. It was so special. So one day when Thomas was outside the country with work, I was left in the house all alone, bored. Since I had no friends or close relatives, the house was truly boring and lonely. Thomas was the only friend I had, and he was also my best friend. I tried staying indoors the first 2 days that Thomas went on, but I couldn't stay in any more longer. So I decided to go and get some fresh air. As I was still sitting in one of the restaurants, I was approached by my long-lost gay friend. Chris, gay friend, male, 31, was actually my best friend in high school, but we lost contact when he moved to Spain for school. I was so happy to see my friend after a long time of not seeing him and not knowing how to reach out to him. I didn't regret getting out of the house that day because it made me reunite with my friend. I know that if Thomas was to learn that I had a gay friend, he would flip because in his head he believes that there's no such thing as gay, because we would be getting along with men who pretend to be women. We once had a talk about gays when we were watching some movie that had gays, and he asked a very awkward and weird question about the LGBTQ plus genders. He asked why gays or transgender don't date lesbians because gays or transgender pretend to be women, while lesbians pretend to be men. To tell the truth, I didn't know how to answer his question because I would also ask myself the same question sometimes and wouldn't get any answer. I just told him that we should actually ask someone who is a transgender or a lesbian that question because it was kind of confusing. I also wanted to know answers to that question because it was really intriguing. So Chris invited me to this party that was going to be at one of his friends' houses in Pinecrest, Florida. Since I was bored and had nothing to do in the house, I told him that I would come to the party. Later on, he sent the coordinates to the party, and I was super excited to be getting a chance to spend with my friend again. I didn't care about whose party it was or who would be on B on that party. I just wanted to have a good time with my long-lost best friend. I had made it look breathtaking and fit for the party because Chris didn't tell me the theme, so I made one myself. Mind you, that day I didn't speak with Thomas the whole day. I didn't even know when he would be coming back. If I knew that he would be home that day, I would have rejected Chris's invitation and made sure that Thomas finds me home. The only thing that was on my mind that day was partying and letting loose. I prepared for the night, and then later I went to the sent coordinates. When I got there, I just couldn't believe it. It was actually a party for men. I wish that Chris would have given me the memo at least just to know what I would be expecting, but I was glad that my outfit was fitting very well. Chris introduced me to the guys, and I would say that they were all good people, chilled and had a vibe that I needed. The party was going well, and the host was looking super handsome. You wouldn't see that he was gay. He was just like every handsome and yummy guy. The party went on. I was drinking like a fish. Not because I had problems or anything, but I just wanted to have some fun and let loose. Plus, I wanted to enjoy my time with my best friend. I had switched off my phone the minute I got into the gate. I had left home with the intention to have fun and be myself for once. I was starting to feel like I was a relative of the house furnisher when I was always in the house. The party was in full swing when I arrived. There were laughs, music, and good vibes all around. I was enjoying myself. mingling with new people and forgetting about the stress of everyday life. It felt liberating to be in the moment and embrace the carefree atmosphere. I was having so much fun and the drinks were flowing. No one was asking anyone any questions. No one cared about you or what you do. The only thing that brought us together was the party and letting loose. As the night went on, I may have gotten carried away with the excitement. I let loose and had a few too many drinks. Time seemed to fly by, and before I knew it, it was time to head home. Mind you, the time was almost after 3 in the a.m.s, meaning I had lost track of time to get home, but I didn't care because I thought that there was no one at the house. At about 4 a.m., I decided to go home. I told Chris that I was going, of which I don't think he had heard me because he was sloshed. I left and tried to drive back home. I hoped that I wouldn't find Thomas because if he saw that I was driving while in the influence of alcohol, he would get mad, and I would get in deep trouble. Little did I know that the universe and God was not actually on my side that day. When I arrived at my doorstep, I was trying to unlock the door, but I was failing dismally because of the state that I was in. The door eventually unlocked. I thought I was the one who unlocked it. But when I opened the door, I was greeted by a surprising sight. He was standing there, waiting for me. I couldn't believe my eyes. How did he know I would be coming back at this exact moment? I got medium sober at the very same moment. I didn't know that he was coming back home, and the worst part was that I didn't even bother to check my phone. I was just excited to be going to the party and getting a chance to get out of the house. I tried acting strong and looking less intoxicated, but I failed. My walking steps were evidence that I was really intoxicated. His expression was a mix of concern, anger, and disappointment. It was clear that he had been worried about me, but he was angry and disappointed in me. I felt a pang of guilt for not considering how my actions might affect him. I tried explaining to him, but he didn't want to hear anything. Instead, he left me at the kitchen doorstep and went to bed. I knew then that I was in deep trouble, and there was nothing I would say nor do that would convince him otherwise. He was angry at me. I ended up falling asleep on the couch, and I was woken by his enraged face in the morning. You know when you were highly sloshed the previous night and you wake up with a great hangover the following day? That was me. I looked at Thomas with apologizing eyes, hoping that maybe he would calm down, but it seemed like I was pouring paraffin in an already blazing flames. He asked where I was coming from, intoxicated and at midnight. I tried lying to him and told him that I was at a friend's party. I just couldn't mention that I had gone to a party that was full of men. I had thought lying to him was going to make him move on from the situation. But little did I know that the man that I was in a relationship with actually had a video of the party. He asked if we had started lying in our relationship. I was confused by his question. I tried to convince him and told him the same lie that I had already told him. But the man of the house did the unthinkable. He threw his phone at me and told me to watch the video. What I saw almost made my heart stop. I tried explaining to him and apologizing, but instead the guy just gave the greatest slap of them all. I couldn't believe it, you know. I was so shocked and my mind and whole body just froze. He literally told me that he had thought I was different, but I was worse than his previous girlfriends. He was so angry to a point that he even called me names and said that I had gone to that party to get those men's attention, and that was why I was wearing a skimpy and revealing outfit. I felt so disrespected by Thomas, but because I knew that I was the one at fault, I decided not to pay attention to it, and humbled myself and apologized for my behavior. I told him that I didn't know that he was coming back on that day, and I had wanted to get some fresh air because I was tired of always being cooped up in the house. We argued a lot to the point that he told me that if I had used my thick skull, I would have known that he was coming back because he had called me so many times, but I was unreachable. He told me that I had disappointed him, and he would make sure that I regret ever going out of the house and went to that party because he was going to make me feel the pain that he was also feeling. I wondered what he would do because it's not like I had cheated on him or something. Or maybe I did, because on the video it showed me kissing with some guy that I don't even remember while another was holding me on my waist and spanking my ass. But is that even cheating? Another thing I don't even remember doing until Thomas showed me the video. It was so embarrassing and humiliating, I had wished for the ground to open up and swallow me at that moment. After our heated argument, he told me to pack my bags and move out of his house. I was so shocked by his sudden decision. I begged him while crying, kicking and apologizing, but he was hearing none of it. He even insisted to help me pack and told me that he won't be in a relationship and even live with a cheap person who goes around allowing other men to spank her and kiss her and say she was drunk. I just couldn't believe Thomas. I tried talking to him in a civilized manner, but he didn't want to hear it. He wanted me gone. I went to our bedroom and packed my clothes. I told him that I was going because I wanted him to calm down and talk about the issue in a civilized and mature manner. Instead of answering me, he just looked at me like I was the most disgusting thing that he had seen. That really broke my heart. I went back home with a heavy heart. I just couldn't believe that the only man who had shown me genuine love had given up on me and dumped me like a used toilet paper. It was really a rough time for me because weeks passed and I had heard nothing from Thomas. I even tried calling him hoping that he would answer, but it seemed like he had blocked my number. During those weeks, I had decided to log on to my social media platform, and maybe I would find him online so I could speak to him. But to my surprise, I was met by the same video from the party, and there was a caption that said, "Sometimes we fall in love with people thinking they are the one, only for us to find out after years of being together that the person you love is actually a snake in a sheep's skin. After this, I'm never going to forgive her, and I don't think I would ever be in any relationship again." That caption took the last straw of being patient and hoping that my man would somehow get back to me. It drove me straight to depression. I had not only broken my relationship, but I had also broken the heart of the man that loved me and has been there for me when no one was. The only man who knew me when I was down, happy, or stressed. I had jeopardized that, and it got destroyed because of my stupidity. 2 months later, my mother called our church pastor to pray for me, then got me a virtual therapist because I didn't want to face the world. I had my therapy sessions while at home. Yes, my mother was very disappointed at me when she heard that I had gone to a men's party and not intentionally cheated on my fiancé. She got angry at me and gave me a silent treatment for a week. My breakup with Thomas really shattered me, and to top it up, the video that he had posted on his timeline and the caption almost drove me to an early grave. I didn't know the damage that I had done to Thomas's heart until I read that caption. He hated me. Well, I think he still hates me. 1 month later, I had started to heal. I knew that somehow I had to move on and try to live with the fact that what happened had happened, and there was nothing I would do to change it. My mother convinced me to start focusing more on my catering business that I had abandoned for years. My mother was the one taking care of my business, and I am so grateful to her. My relationship with Thomas made me forget some of the things that were putting food on the table. From that day forward, I learned the value of balance and considering the impact of my actions on others. While it's important to let loose and have fun, it's equally important to be responsible and mindful of those who care about us. I'm still on the healing journey, even though it's really hard having to get my heart to move on from Thomas. How do I deal with this?
This woman is crazy. The story is titled, "My Little Brother Set Up a Trap with a Camera When I Let My Affair Come Over and Showed My Husband." Hi, Reddit. I've always been a big fan of this platform, scrolling through memes, joining discussions, but I never imagined I'd find myself here, pouring out my heart to internet strangers. Yet, here I am, hoping that maybe someone out there can learn a lesson from my mistakes, or perhaps just find something funny in my epic level of stupidity. Just, whatever you do, don't judge me too harshly. I've already spent countless nights doing that to myself. My mistake has cost me everything. I cheated on my husband and even let my affair partner come over. My little brother didn't like that, and he exposed me. Some backstory: first, my name is Alicia, and I'm a 34-year-old woman. I've been married to Jason, a 35-year-old man, for 6 years now, but our connection spans a lifetime. Jason and I are childhood sweethearts, inseparable since the playground days. Jason was like the perfect husband. He just got me, you know? It's like he completed me in every way, like finding that last puzzle piece that fits just right. We were total opposites since we were kids. I was the quiet type, not too many friends, while Jason was Mr. Popular, always surrounded by people. He was smart, funny, and the star of the football team, basically the whole package. Me, I was just there. The kind of kid you'd pass in the hallway and forget 2 seconds later. But everyone loved Jason, especially my family. Parents, siblings, aunts, cousins, they all adored him. It's like he was always meant to be part of the family. And my younger brother, who I'll call Vincent in this story for the sake of privacy, he's 18 and he looked up to Jason like he was some kind of hero. He wanted to be just like him right from when he was a kid. Jason and I both decided to wait a bit before getting married. We wanted to make sure we were financially stable first. Jason had a great career ahead of him, and I wanted him to be secure because, let's face it, his stability meant mine too. After some time, we finally tied the knot, and it's been 6 years since then. Well, until the divorce, but I'll get to that later. Things were going really well. Our sex life was okay-ish, and we lived in this huge house thanks to Jason's success. He was making good money, so we were pretty settled. We even started planning for retirement since Jason hoped to retire early before turning 50 and all that jazz. And we have 2 amazing boys, ages 7 and 5. Let's call the oldest Rio and the youngest Carter. I'm changing their names for privacy reasons. When Jason and I first got married, I was working in sales. It wasn't the highest paying job, but it got me out of the house. Eventually, I made the decision to quit and become a full-time stay-at-home mom, especially since Jason was bringing in a good income. Being a stay-at-home mom can get pretty monotonous, you know? And Jason wasn't home much, but I understood. He had to provide for the family. But as I mentioned, being a stay-at-home mom began to feel mundane, especially once the kids started school. I found myself longing for something more, something to break the monotony of daily life. That's when I decided to join the local gym. It was refreshing to meet and connect with others there, and I ended up forming some meaningful friendships. It was also where I met Jacob, my personal trainer. Jacob and I began with a completely platonic relationship. He was my personal trainer, and I was his client. He excelled at his job, and it didn't hurt that he was easy on the eyes. Sure, I entertained thoughts about what it would be like to be with someone like Jacob, but they were just fleeting thoughts. I was married, and I loved my husband deeply. Just because I found someone attractive didn't mean I was betraying my vows. Jacob was incredibly friendly and charming, which made our interactions even more enjoyable. It all began innocently enough, with some playful banter between us. Jacob had a knack for making me laugh, and his charm was undeniable. As our interactions progressed, there were accidental touches and shamelessly staring hard at each other. Looking back, I wish I had put an end to it right then and there. Perhaps if I had, I wouldn't be making this post now. Then things took a turn when Jacob began inviting me out for dinner after our workouts. He'd wait for me while I changed, and then we'd head out together to grab a meal. Jacob seemed to understand me in a way that I hadn't felt in a long time, and I found myself feeling increasingly lonely. My husband's demanding job left him exhausted and preoccupied, and that left me craving companionship and understanding. As Jacob and I spent more time together, we grew closer. He really listened to me and understood what I was going through, something I didn't always feel from my husband. Our chats went beyond just fitness stuff. We talked about everything. I opened up to him about my worries, and he shared his own struggles too. Our hangouts went from grabbing dinner to just chilling over coffee, chatting for hours. There was this pull between us that kept getting stronger, and even though I felt guilty, being with Jacob was like a breath of fresh air in my routine life. He became my go-to person, the one who made me happy when everything else felt dull, and as time went on, our friendship started feeling like something more. We were definitely flirting shamelessly, but I kept telling myself it was harmless. And besides, even if it did go further, it wasn't entirely my fault, right? I mean, maybe if my husband had more time for us, I wouldn't have been looking elsewhere. One day, I impulsively invited Jacob over to my place. He didn't have much money and still lived with his parents, unfortunately, so he couldn't entertain me at their house. He'd come over when the kids were at school and we'd hang out. It was convenient since it was usually just me and the kids at home or just me when they were at school. One day, like always, Jacob came over. We opened a bottle of wine and started chatting. With the kids at school, we had plenty of time to ourselves. After a few drinks, our conversation turned to our love lives. Jacob admitted he wasn't into commitment and preferred being with multiple partners. I shared my feelings of loneliness in my marriage, how my husband's busy schedule left me feeling neglected. Jacob agreed and said it was weird that he had never ever met my husband, and then he suggested something unexpected. He said he could help me feel less lonely despite my love for my husband. I laughed it off at first, thinking he was joking, but he insisted he was serious, proposing that we could help each other out. I brushed it off, saying he was drunk, and we could discuss it later when he was sober. I needed to pick up the kids soon anyway, so I asked him to leave. As the day went on, I couldn't shake the thought of Jacob's offer. What if I accepted it? I was so desperate for companionship, and my husband wouldn't even know. I tried to justify it to myself, searching for any excuse to fill the void of loneliness. After pondering it all day, I convinced myself that my husband wouldn't be hurt if he didn't know. Isn't that how the saying goes? So I decided to accept Jacob's offer. But first, I needed to make sure he was serious. I messaged him and he confirmed he was still on board. He respected my decision either way, but he was willing to help me feel less lonely. Looking back, it was the dumbest decision ever. But before you judge, try feeling the kind of loneliness that eats away at your soul. It leaves you feeling hollow, like nothing can fill the void. I was desperate, and that's how it started with Jacob. Since he still lived with his parents, it made sense to meet at my place. My husband was hardly ever home, and the kids were at school during the day. Why waste money on a hotel when my house was empty? So we'd hang out there, spending hours together. It became our comfortable little haven, and our connection grew stronger. It felt like Jacob and I were in a real relationship. Sometimes I even forgot I was married to someone else. He made me feel so alive and complete, like I'd been missing out on something big. Sure, I felt guilty about cheating on my husband, but what's done is done. We settled into a routine of comfort and secrecy. Jacob couldn't leave anything at my house in case my husband found it, and he couldn't be around when my husband or the kids were home. But other than that, he was all in. Sometimes late at night when the kids were asleep, I'd sneak out with Jacob to grab dinner at places where we wouldn't bump into anyone we knew. It was risky and wrong, I knew, but I felt so happy in those moments. Slowly, I started pulling away from my husband. Instead of eagerly awaiting his return home, I became more distant and glued to my phone. As time passed, I felt like me and my husband were drifting apart. The excitement of him coming home just wasn't there anymore. Our talks felt awkward, like we were just going through the motions. I struggled to show interest in what he had to say, often finding distractions to avoid being around him. Our connection felt strained, and I knew it was partly my fault. But being with Jacob was like a breath of fresh air compared to the dullness of my marriage. Each moment with him felt fulfilling in a way I hadn't felt in years. And as I spent more time with Jacob, the gap between me and my husband grew wider. Life settled into a routine for a while. When the kids were at school, Jacob and I would hang out at my house. When my husband was home, we'd text and chat instead. Just to be clear, I didn't love Jacob. I just loved the comfort and warmth he provided. But that blinded me to the fact that I was slowly ruining my marriage. A few months later, my brother unexpectedly decided to move in with us. Our house was closer to his college, so he thought it made sense. He didn't bother asking for my permission, which annoyed me because it meant I couldn't have Jacob over anymore. Plus, I didn't know my brother's schedule, so I couldn't risk him catching us together. He asked my husband instead, who was actually excited about it. He thought it would help me feel less lonely, especially since my brother and I were close. The kids were thrilled when my brother moved in. My kids adored him, and he brought so much fun into our home with his playful nature. Deep down, I felt guilty for being annoyed by his arrival, knowing how much joy he brought to my family. So my brother moved in, but I still wanted to see Jacob. So we started sneaking around, meeting up at hotels. It went on for a while until I realized my brother was more loyal to me than my husband. He'd keep my secret because he was my brother. So, why bother with hotels when I could bring Jacob home? Looking back, it was a dumb move, I know. I started bringing Jacob over, pretending he was just a friend. But my brother caught on quick. One day I thought my brother would be at college all day, so I invited Jacob over. We were getting intimate on the couch when my brother walked in. There was no denying it. We were caught red-handed. I sent Jacob away and sat my brother down, begging him not to tell my husband. I played the lonely card, knowing my brother loved me too much to spill the beans. He agreed not to tell, but he wanted me to stop seeing Jacob. I couldn't, though. Jacob was the only thing making me happy. My brother suggested talking to my husband, but I couldn't. I felt useless compared to him, and I didn't know how to bring it up. For a week after that, my brother barely spoke to me. He gave short, one-word answers, clearly weighed down by the guilt of keeping my secret. It hurt to see him like that, but I couldn't sacrifice my own happiness, especially when being with Jacob brought me so much joy. However, eventually, my brother must have reached a breaking point because he confessed everything to my husband. It was a weekend and everyone was at home, which was quite rare and exciting. It happened on a Saturday when the kids were at school. My brother mentioned he didn't have any mandatory classes that day, so he was at home too. My husband had decided to take a break from work and stay home as well. So, all of us were at home that day. I decided to rush to the grocery store to get something special to cook for us. However, while I was away, my brother confessed everything to my husband. Naturally, my husband didn't believe him. I mean, why would he? We'd been together forever, so the idea of me cheating seemed absurd to him. I only learned about their conversation later, but I'll get to that. Apparently, my brother was so angry that my husband didn't believe him that he promised to find clear evidence of my infidelity, but I had no idea about any of this. When I returned with the stuff and cooked, we all ate together. I noticed my husband seemed a bit more cheerful than usual and even a bit conflicted, but I didn't think much of it. I just shrugged it off and carried on with my day. I had no idea about the trap my brother had set for me, so I carried on with my usual routine. My husband dove back into his work, my brother focused on his classes, and I continued sneaking around with Jacob. On the day everything went south, it started like any other day. My brother was home, skipping his classes for once. When I brought Jacob over, my brother couldn't hide his disdain. He grunted disapprovingly and retreated to his room. I brushed it off, knowing how emotional he could be. Ignoring my brother's attitude, I took Jacob upstairs to our bedroom, and we were intimate. Looking back, I regret it all, but you can't change the past. Anyway, Jacob and I spent a few hours together before hunger struck. With only an hour left before I had to pick up the kids, I whipped up a quick lunch and even left some for my brother. After eating, Jacob and I left together, and I told my brother I was off to get the kids. When I returned home later, I noticed my brother seemed oddly cheerful, yet guilty. I'm no expert on reading emotions, but I could tell something was up. I had a feeling something was bothering my brother, but I knew better than to pry. He was always secretive and kept things close to his chest. Besides, whatever was on his mind wasn't really my concern, so I shrugged it off and went about my day. That night, my husband didn't come home, so I video called him with the kids. They chatted eagerly, sharing stories from their day. Despite me being home most of the time, they were still more attached to their dad. They missed him dearly, as they always did. The week passed by in its usual routine. I dropped off the kids at school and brought Jacob over. I noticed my brother skipping classes more often, always at home when Jacob was around. But I didn't dwell on it too much, chalking it up to him skipping lectures or struggling with a course. Still, I made a mental note to talk to him about it. Despite his annoying habits, he was still my brother, and I cared about him. As the weekend approached, I relished the rare opportunity of having everyone at home together. The kids were thrilled to have their dad around more. I decided to go out shopping, and my husband encouraged me to go alone while he looked after the kids. It was such a rare treat to have everyone at home together, so I savored the moment and went out shopping, leaving the kids behind. I did some grocery shopping, picked up some new stuff, and even treated myself to a manicure. My nail tech was thrilled to see me, and we caught up on everything since we last met. It had been ages since I had the time to visit her shop regularly, as my schedule was always packed. Ever since my involvement with Jacob, I filled every spare moment with him, leaving little time for anything else. So, it was a welcome break to spend some time with my nail tech. However, when it came time to pay, my card was declined. I was stunned. Why would my card be frozen? I tried to transfer money, but that failed too. Checking my account, I realized it had been frozen. How? Why? When? Thankfully, my nail tech was understanding and allowed me to sort things out with my bank later. She truly saved the day. Upon returning home, I was greeted by a shocking sight. My belongings strewn across the porch. I was at a loss for words, trying to comprehend what was happening. I knocked on the door for what felt like ages, only for my brother to answer and inform me that my husband had instructed him not to let me in. I was bewildered. Was this some kind of joke? Why wouldn't my husband let me into our own home? Why was he avoiding me? I felt a wave of panic wash over me, desperate for answers. My brother's words hit me like a ton of bricks. My husband knew everything, and he was heartbroken. I couldn't wrap my head around it. How could my husband know? When did he find out? How long had he known? A million questions raced through my mind as I struggled to make sense of the situation. In a state of despair, I broke down into tears, screaming and pleading for answers. My brother revealed that my husband had videos as evidence. My heart sank as I realized the truth. The guilt written all over my brother's face confirmed my worst fears. How could he betray me like this? He was supposed to be my brother, my confidant. How could he do this to me? I didn't need a crystal ball to figure out it was my brother behind this mess. All I could think about was when and how he managed to record me. I was beyond distraught, not knowing what to do next. Frantically, I tried calling, texting, and even shouting for my husband from the porch. But my brother, clearly tired of my desperation, just slammed the door in my face. His guilt was literally written all over him. How could he do this to me? He was my brother. Left with no choice, I hailed an Uber back to my parents' place. Their surprise at my sudden appearance was evident, but they didn't push for answers. I even found myself short on cash to pay for the ride, thanks to my husband freezing our accounts. Luckily, my parents coughed up the money without probing further, sensing my distress. They simply urged me to rest and grab a bite if I felt up to it, though hunger was the last thing on my mind. After all, marriage had just gone to shit. After a fitful nap, I woke up to a full-blown nightmare. My husband, in a petty display of revenge, had looped in everyone we knew into a group chat and shared intimate videos of me with Jacob. The shock of seeing my private moments laid bare for all to see shattered what little remained of my composure. Tears flowed freely, but this time there was no solace from my parents. They knew the ugly truth of my actions, and their silence spoke volumes. My whole life felt like it was laid bare for everyone to see, and I didn't have a clue how to explain it all to my parents. All I could do was cry. I was weighed down by shame and regret. I tried to tell them that loneliness drove me to betray my husband's trust, but the words sounded empty even to me. My parents were disappointed, but they could see I was on the verge of a breakdown, so they didn't push me too hard. They said they'd call my brother to get the full story. It wasn't long before my brother spilled the beans himself. He was scared at first, knowing our parents would blame him. But he admitted he'd told my husband everything, even though my husband didn't believe him at first. My brother thought he had to act to protect his brother-in-law from more heartache. He made it clear how badly I'd messed up and how my husband didn't deserve it, especially when he was trying so hard for our family. Even though my parents were mad at my brother for turning on his own sister, they were stuck. After all, I cheated, plain and simple. They figured if the roles were reversed and my husband had cheated, my brother would have told me too. Throughout all this mess, my husband stayed silent, not bothering to talk to me or respond to any of my messages. Meanwhile, everyone in the group chats was going nuts, talking about what I did, like it was the worst thing ever. Friends were flipping out, sending me messages saying how messed up it was. My husband's family couldn't believe I'd do something like that to him, adding more weight to the guilt I was already feeling. But you know how it goes? Gossip spreads like wildfire. Jacob ended up seeing the videos himself. He sent them back to me, saying I invaded his privacy and then blocked me. Losing Jacob felt like getting kicked while I was already down. My parents tried to step in talking to my husband, but it didn't help. They didn't want me around during the talks, worried it might make things worse. When they came back, they dropped the bombshell. My marriage was done. My husband made it clear he wouldn't forgive me, no matter what. It was like hearing that even if the world was ending, he still wouldn't take me back. I'm still holed up at my parents' place, feeling like a total wreck. Finally, my husband did reach out and unfortunately told me that we're getting a divorce. He said he'd let me know when the papers were ready. He made sure to remind me it was all my fault, like I needed a reminder. He did say I could see the kids, but only if I let him know in advance. Apparently, he's cut back on work to spend more time with them, something he should have done ages ago. So now I'm left with a shattered marriage and no idea what's next. Court's looming and I'm not optimistic. I'm broke, jobless, and totally dependent on him. Plus I cheated, and he's got the receipts. I doubt any judge would take my side, and I guess I'm just sharing this mess to warn others. Don't be as dumb as me. Talk to your spouse. Get help if you need it. Don't let things spiral out of control like I did. Thanks for listening.